Hello, welcome, and a Happy New Year. And I hope that you enjoyed as blessed a Christmas as was possible in all the circumstances. Today, Wednesday, is the feast, the actual feast today of Epiphany, the showing forth of the infant Jesus to the world, represented particularly today by the wise men, the Magi, who visit the infant Jesus. This story's buried, isn't it, under layers of carol services, nativity plays, images of Christmas cards, carols, cribs. And all of those are wonderful, and we wouldn't do without them. And they're very much part of our faith journey at Christmas. But this encounter is every bit as much an encounter of power and human wisdom with vulnerability and heavenly wisdom, the wisdom of God. And often the way we remember the Epiphany, the visit of the Magi, can obscure this a bit. Have a look at this picture by Tissot of the journey of the Magi. These are people you definitely don't want to argue with. Yet something happened in the manger to drive them to their knees in wonder, joy, which overwhelmed them, Matthew says, and stopped them in their tracks. This was a power in the infant Jesus that is one with the light of the world and one with a power that can hold the stars in their courses. The star that the wise men saw at its rising. And this power comes through an infant who at that moment did not even have the power to hold the priceless gifts that were being offered to him. The journey and visit of the Magi to Jesus only comes in Matthew's Gospel. Matthew, as always, is extremely keen to have his listeners know that everything that happens in the life, death, resurrection, and ministry of Jesus is very much a fulfillment of a prophecy. The promises of God given to his pilgrim people in their journeys as recorded in the Hebrew Scriptures and through the prophets and the kings that we hear about in those times. Let's listen to a part of the wider Epiphany reading that we usually have in church from the second chapter of Matthew's Gospel. When they had heard the king, they set out, and there, ahead of them, went the star that they had seen at its rising, until it stopped over the place where the child was. When they saw that the star had stopped, they were overwhelmed with joy. On entering the house, they saw the child with Mary his mother, and they knelt down and paid him homage. Then, opening their treasure chests, they offered him gifts of gold, frankincense, and myrrh. They were overwhelmed with joy. And driven to their knees. That deep sense that all the earthly power that they represent is confounded at this moment of showing forth to them as representatives of us, of God's heavenly love. Have a look at a really interesting painting by Buren, who was influenced by Rembrandt. So you'll see that the similarities between a Rembrandt painting you might love and this one. Here you can see the Magi reeling back in a state of being overwhelmed, almost blinded by the light. They're not in control. They're astounded. They're filled with a joy that completely possesses them. And if you look at the picture carefully, you can see a spark of light, almost like a little bolt of light, flying out towards them from the infant Jesus. It's a picture of miracle and strangeness, wonder and glory. The showing forth of ultimate love and compassionate power in infinite vulnerability. This is no tame lion. We should close with a poem by Francis Chesterton. And it speaks of the danger and wonder of an encounter with the infant Jesus. The poem was written just after the First World War, and in a context where Frances herself was dealing with her own sense of loss at not being able to be a mother. So it's a very powerful set of images that she uses. She somehow recalibrates the aftermath of the First World War, which is when she wrote the poem, and the images of death and battle, with the sword of the Spirit, which pierces to our hearts with God's sharp love, the strange wonder of human sacrifice and martyrdom, and the strangeness and loveliness of the gifts, and the smallness of the tiny child, perhaps in some senses the tiny child she would have liked to hold. Here it is. It's called Here is the Little Door. You may have heard it in a version where it's set to music by Herbert Howells. Here is the little door. Lift up the latch. Oh, lift. We need not wander more, but enter with our gift. Our gift of finest gold. Gold that was never bought nor sold. Myrrh to be strewn about his bed. Incense in clouds about his head. All for the child who stirs not in his sleep, but holy slumber holds with ass and sheep. Bend low about his bed, for each he has a gift. See how his eyes awake. Lift up your hands, oh lift. For gold he gives a keen-edged sword. Defend with it thy little lord. For incense, smoke of battle red. Myrrh, for the honoured happy dead. Gifts for his children, terrible and sweet, touched by such tiny hands, and oh, such tiny feet.